When my school is on break, I work with my dad at his office as much as I can. This year I started to go on hikes for exercise. Because of work, I can't go on hikes until later in the evening. I normally would try to hike for at least an hour. I would often get back to my car after the sun had set. After work, just like any other day, I drove to the hiking trail and began my hike. It was finally a warm day, so I hiked longer than usual. At around 3 miles into the hike, the sun was setting, and fast. After walking back only a mile, the sun had completely set. I was still 2 miles away from the parking lot. My phone's flashlight barely gave enough light to see the ground in front of me. Being by myself on the trail in complete darkness made me uneasy. I wanted to run back, but I kept tripping over rocks and roots, so I had to watch carefully and go slowly. The entire time my guard was up. I was listening for the slightest noises. After a mile of quickly walking back, I swore I heard someone moving behind me. I stopped in my place and listened. I heard nothing except my own breathing. After waiting for a few more seconds, I heard twigs breaking and leaves moving behind me. I started to run. Over the noise of me running and my gear hitting my sides, I made out the sound of laughter, or maybe even someone crying. After running a bit further, I saw the faint light of the parking lot lamps. While trying to get my car keys out of my backpack, I heard more noises behind me. It sounded like boots on gravel. Without looking back, I ran into my car and got in. After driving away, I looked back at the trail through my rearview mirror. It may have been my brain playing tricks on me, or the darkness messing with my eyes, but there was a figure at the trail entrance, staring at my car as I sped off. Was that person following me? My friend and I would mountain bike almost every single weekend. During one of our typical Saturday morning rides, his bike broke. Normally, we would be able to easily fix it, considering we always carry a backpack full of tools just in case something like this happens. However, this time it wasn't possible. He had to take his bike to a shop to be fixed, which was no big deal. We were only about 2 miles into the trail, so we started walking our bikes back. On our walk back, we were able to see things we've never seen before since normally we're riding through the trail super fast. It was actually nice being able to take in the beauty of the forest. About 2 minutes into our walk back, I noticed the side of one of the hills, a few meters from the trail, had a small cave entrance. We decided to check it out for fun. After getting closer, we realized it was a small opening to a decently sized cave. My friend shined his flashlight into the hole and called me over in a terrified tone. I looked into the hole and saw what he saw. On the ground of the cave were fresh human remains. It looked like an arm and piece of a torso was on the ground with skin still attached. After looking around more, I saw blood covering all the cave walls. Still in shock, my friend said it must have been a wild animal. But in my head, the way the arm was severed looked too intact to be from an animal. We ran to my car to charge our phones and called the cops. After telling them what we saw, we tried to take them to the area where we saw the cave. But for some reason we couldn't find it. We looked for an hour, and we couldn't find the cave. I just hope there isn't some psycho roaming these trails. For spring break, my 2 friends and I decided to go camping out west. We set up camp in a valley and wanted to hike the mountain that overlooked our campsite. After eating breakfast by our fire, we packed our hiking gear and headed up the mountain trail. After coming back to our campsite a few hours later, our campsite was destroyed. Our tent was flipped over, and our gear was scattered all over the ground. We didn't know if a bear came through our camp, or if some random person decided to destroy our stuff. Strangely enough, none of our items were missing, not even food, so it couldn't have been an animal, we thought. We then concluded that it must have been a strong gust of wind. We set our tent back up and decided to go swimming in the nearby lake. There was a small island in the middle of the lake, so we swam to the island and jumped off the rocks into the water. After hanging out on the rocks for a bit and talking, we noticed a figure standing on the lake's shoreline. He didn't look like a hiker or a camper. He had no shirt on and wore baggy brown shorts. He was just staring at us with his feet in the water. Luckily, our gear was on the complete opposite side of the lake, so we swam back to shore and headed back to our campsite. When we got back to our campsite, we noticed our tent was unzipped, even though we all know for a fact we left it zipped before going swimming. We all started to feel uneasy, but we didn't want these occurrences ruining our trip. Later, during the first night, we sat around the campfire drinking. We all agreed that it felt like we were being watched. We tried ignoring it and attempted to have fun, but in the back of our mind, we were all feeling uneasy. We were all dreading falling asleep, especially after hearing leaves being crunched all night. During the night, I woke up the clear sound of someone walking around our campsite. I quietly woke up my friends and signaled for them to be quiet. We all listened as we heard someone outside walking around, getting closer to our tent. The walking stopped, and we could see a shadow of a figure standing behind our tent. We sat there in complete silence, trying so hard not to make any noise. After what felt like hours, the figure walked away. After a few minutes, we got out of the tent to check and saw no one. We stayed up all night until the next morning. We then packed up our things and went into town to rent a hotel room for the rest of the trip.